Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 29 of the Dark Rooms podcast. I'm Psychic, being joined by Ozone underscore Inky. Sadly, can't make it. He wasn't feeling very well. And we're also being joined by a special guest, Theft King. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Theft King. I started making YouTube videos like a month ago.
Nice.
That's a pretty short time span.
That's a great introduction there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I make, I guess I started out making FNaF videos and, that's still what I make are FNaF videos, but I'd like to make videos about whatever I think is cool. So
That's
on
cool.
that journey.
You've come pretty far in a month, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's sort of it sets these sort of unrealistic expectations. Like I have no idea what the normal is for my channel. Like I upload a video and it's like your video is within the range of 1,000 to 60,000 views for this. And I'm like, okay, great. Like that doesn't tell me anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
YouTube's a bit weird like that. It's mainly
exciting.
it's mainly because your views are always really high, but your subscriber count just doesn't really. It doesn't portray that.
That's another thing is to sort of figure out like. When my subscriber count is low, so I can't drop a video and sort of reliably get I get maybe 200 views from sub notifications. Like that's it. So
Yeah.
I have to sort of play this crazy game of like of seeing the thumbnail ahead of time and because I know most people are going to see that thumbnail maybe once or twice, and if they don't click it, YouTube is not going to show them it again. So
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very about that.
it's called clickbait, but I think at this point everybody is just down with it.
There's a difference between clickbait and misleading clickbait, but they've kind of become synonymous.
Yeah, I guess I think misleading. I think my videos tend to be on the line, where like my latest video is particularly on the line, where it's like, oh, you can perceive this as technically it's not clickbait, but obviously the way that I knew that everyone would read the thumbnail is clickbaity. But surprisingly, I haven't seen at least any comments about clickbait. It's generally just people arguing about FNaF. That's usually at the forefront of FNaF YouTube viewers' minds after watching a FNaF video. So.
True. And if you want to argue,
got a pretty good
do it in the comments right here on this video.
It's funny. I was watching a chess video. I don't play chess. I'm not very good, but I just played for fun.
Yeah.
I was watching a chess video recently, and the guy was like, "Yeah, you say inflammatory stuff, and then people argue about it in the comments, and it drives up engagement." So that was another thing. On my early videos, I replied to every comment, every single one. And it was also kind of funny, and I have to say this because I got to be transparent about everything, and I've told people this. It's not a secret. I was just making YouTube videos out of curiosity because I just sort of wanted to see what YouTube looked like from the YouTuber side of things, right?
Yeah.
And so then I saw oh, you can promote a YouTube video. You can pay money to promote it. What does that mean? So I paid $15, right?
Right.
And it ran this ad. And so I get all these people clicking this video and saying what the heck is this? Why is this an ad? This channel with 4 subscribers. I've never seen anything like this, right? And that was all engagement, I guess,
Yeah.
And so it was just it's been a weird 2022 so far.
Yeah. I would like to take this moment to formally announce that Dark Rooms is now specifically only becoming advertisements. You will only be able to watch the podcast as an advertisement.
Nice.
That's
Only as an ad. an unskippable ad.
Yes.
You have to watch the entire thing before you can watch
No. Just
the
to be
2-minute
clear,
video.
my video wasn't an advertisement like a pre-roll or a mid-roll. I just
Yeah.
you pay for impressions. Is
Wait,
the idea.
really?
Ultimately, that you pay and your video shows up on the sidebar at the top with ad underneath it, but they can't make anybody click it. They can't make anybody
really?
watch it.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen videos like that before, and sometimes I straight up click them because I'm curious, what is this? Usually it's nothing special, but
And I think
No, I kind of want to do that.
it's a unique. I wouldn't recommend it for any of us because what happens is for me, first off, for a young channel, the moment you advertise a video, like in terms of like getting partner and like getting those statistics, none of the watch hours or views from that video count, right? It's just
Right.
ineligible. The other
It's-
thing is
yeah.
that if I did that now, people would see like this channel with 25K subs advertising, and they'd be like, yo, that's cringy as hell. But
Yeah.
when you have 25 subs, it's just kind of amusing. So I think that's why I got away with it. I don't think you could pull that off with any sort of subscriber count.
True.
Don't go spending mummy's credit card on the internet.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
advertise
And
your
again,
videos.
all you get
Unless-
is the impression. They have to click your video at the end of the day.
Yeah.
They have to be interested.
Of course.
I mean, that's just the name of the game.
Yes. Anyway, I think. we
Anyway,
should probably
hi,
move
welcome to
on
this
our
FNaF
main topic.
podcast. Welcome to the FNaF podcast.
The super
I think
meta FNAF.
we got Theft King on for this episode because I think you're very good at articulating kind of, I guess, feelings and I don't know what word to
I think I
I'm
know
not very
what you're
good at
trying to say.
articulating. Yeah,
I
you're
think-
you're good at talking about things.
So my video that really blew up and sort of trended or went viral, whatever you want, it didn't hit the trending page, but the one that did over 1 million, I think that, which was about, MatPat's probably right, which kind of sucks.
I watched that one.
Yeah,
I watched
1.2 million views.
That completely blew up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the reason that resonated with people is because there was a little something for everybody there. There is that side of the FNAF fandom that was like totally stoked with Matt's theory, and I think it validated them because on one hand I was saying like, yeah, I think it's correct. But on the other side, there was this big backlash of people who were like, oh, but that's so dumb. And I think I sort of validated those people's feelings as well by sort of, fence sitting and being like, look, I think he's right, but I also totally understand why people don't like this because it's so dumb.
You were playing both sides, so you will always come out on top. Basically.
I was sympathizing, I mean, it's how I legitimately feel. Like, I do
Yeah.
believe MatPat is right, but at the same time, I can't help but empathize with the people, some of whom I think were putting misplaced anger and just sort of denying it because they thought it was dumb. And I guess I sort of I articulated that, like, guys, it is dumb, but like that doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked
And-
about that before, where it's like people hate a theory because they don't like it.
Yeah.
The whole theory community is kind of whack nowadays with the FNAF
Dream
community.
theory comes to mind.
Dream theory. We have a history with dream theory on this podcast.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
Right now.
What was I gonna say?
I don't know.
Yeah, I I don't know. We should get into talking about MatPat's theories. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And how the community kind of takes them, because he did get a lot of backlash, and I think you were right in making a video like that where you're kind of sympathizing with both sides, as you said. Yeah. Anyone else want to talk?
Yeah, I think his latest video. First up, I was like watching it, like heart pounding, because you want to see like, oh God, is he going to say something that like makes me look really dumb, or makes some video that I've made really dumb? Because MatPat's wicked smart. Everybody knows that, right?
Yeah.
And he's read all these books and all that kind of stuff. I think the start of his theory, he went through and made a really compelling case for like, no, guys, Gregory's like definitely a robot, right?
Yeah. So we're talking about the first video here, right?
Oh, the very first video. Okay.
Well, what are you talking about?
I was just talking about the beginning of his latest theory, but
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Continue. Sorry.
yeah, no, I was thinking just the one that's obviously what's fresh in my mind right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it ties sort of back to the first theory, because it all started with Gregory being a robot, and this sort of visceral reaction to that. And I think part of that reaction was because it was so compelling and because it was so believable, and like it's totally the kind of thing FNAF would do in 2022.
Yeah,
it's like,
Of course.
oh, he was a robot the whole time. And like, yeah, if you tell someone that in isolation, like if you tried to explain to someone who didn't play FNAF, the FNAF story, when you get to the part where he's like, but then you find out that Gregory was actually a robot the whole time, you sound like a crazy person.
Not only is he a robot, but he's this past character that died. Depending on which theory you believe, he died anywhere between 1 to 3 times, depending on what theory you believe.
how three? I know that there's the FNaF 4 death that we see.
Yes.
Yes.
Then what would be?
I was like, some people believe that William killed his son, then he got revived, then he got killed in the bite, and then he he got killed by Gold, and like I assume like Golden Freddy, he passed on, so therefore like actually died, I guess, with Happy's Day.
The ultimate custom night final death.
Yeah, like he like. Well, I don't know who's in Golden Freddy during custom night, but I always assume that Happy's Day was bite victim leaving. Or something.
Right.
It was something. It's something like that. So I was like, oh, he's gone for a third time, I guess. So that'd be 3 times. Depending on what you believe.
So that brings up a really interesting question, which MatPat, I'm not surprised in hindsight because I know what evidence is available to him, but he didn't really go into the idea of like, is this a fully robotic recreation of the crying child, is Gregory, or is like Remnant involved and his soul actually in there? Like,
of course.
Yeah.
And it also like brings up the question of like why, and
actually
it's you go, Psychic. You go.
So that's actually interesting. I never considered that it could be a recreation of a crying child, but not have his soul in it. Because I'm starting to believe that sorry, I'm turning off a notification for this iPad because it keeps dinging.
It would be crazy if he didn't have the soul, absolutely. But it's possible.
I've been believing that Crying Child is more likely in Glamrock Freddy. Like, his soul's in there instead of...
Whoa.
Huh.
All right,
I've been talking with
that.
I've been talking with Krakoa and I don't...
Yeah.
What is his name? Like, he has told me, like, he's FNaF sister location stand in your server, Ozone. We had him on that one day. It was like Sandwich.
Funtime Freddy, some Funtime, I don't know.
Yeah. I've been talking with him and Krakoa, and we've been like talking about like how like stuff like my friends line from Glamrock Freddy would make sense, kind of. I don't remember all the things, but I felt like it was more likely than Crying Child and Gregory, I guess. I don't know.
There's just like it's what MatPat said in his last theory here, is like you can take everything so many different ways, but nothing is going to be like 100%.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, sure, the Crying Child being Glamrock Freddy is a good idea. Crying Child being Gregory is a good idea, but like, there's never going to be
one satisfying answer.
Yeah, like it's not going to be satisfying at all.
Honestly,
that's a good point. That was. I think that's what people strive for. I think that's what turns people off is that, people will come up with a theory, and the theory will explain one of the mysteries. A great example is why does Gregory's vision glitch out? It's because he's a robot, right? There's a theory that took a mystery from the game and gave us an answer to it. And a lot of the theories that came back sort of in adversarial to that one, and the ones that were in contrast to that, created new mysteries. They were like, no, Gregory's not a robot. It's Vanny's carrying an illusion disc. And it's like, okay, so now we have Gregory's vision glitches out because she's carrying an illusion disc, but we have no idea why or like what or anything. So I think people tend to gravitate. I think we need to go for, and I think this is what MatPat did, is go for the theories that, go for the stuff that works and that answers questions rather than giving us new ones.
But at the same time, I think Security Breach, although the story's kind of a bit meh, I think it was good in like giving us a lot of questions and mysteries, some of which could be solved. Like we've talked about the whole Golden Freddy Cassidy thing, Princess Quest. And the Bonnie thing, like there's a lot of mysteries there that have been solved, and it's kind of still setting up the next game or the DLC or whatever's to come next.
I think
that could explain our mysteries.
I think that DLC is definitely next. I don't know. Yeah. I feel like the DLC will either be like there's more after this or there's nothing after this. Like I think DLC is like either the end or just the next part of the story.
You mean the end of all of FNaF? I don't believe that.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. That's not what I meant. I meant like the end of like this story arc with Vanny, Afton, Gregory, Freddy.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so, dude.
Like, I don't. Like, it also like the problem with DLC is like it's also like with what 7 endings in the game.
Yeah, and that's the other thing as well. Like, which one is
Watch
canon?
it be intra-game DLC, where it's
What?
like, hey, we added this new area that's optional that you can go to, and it's like it's not a continuation. It's just like more tidbits.
Oh,
would
another
hate
ending,
that.
another ending, an 8th
and
ending.
another ending, of course. Yeah.
They need to do the arcade things, I think.
Yeah. Which ending do
whole
you guys
arcade
think is
mystery.
canon?
Oh, definitely.
Princess Quest.
Really? You think 3 stars?
I'm also with Ozone on that one.
Ooh, okay. You theft then me.
Really? I
Yeah.
don't buy that.
All right, what do you think? What do you think?
It's got to be the Afton ending. It's
Okay,
gotta.
it's one of the two, I think.
So-
Yeah,
I
it's
think
one of
so.
the two, but
I definitely am siding with the Afton ending, but the problem is that I would want the Princess Quest to also be a part
Yes,
of that.
because then it's over.
As in, like, both happening simultaneously, but we don't know if that's possible or not.
I think
Oh.
that the Afton ending isn't canon. However, I know why people think it is canon because like the animated cutscene it's the only
Yeah,
one. But
that's the strongest piece of
they were
evidence.
all supposed to have animated cutscenes, not just
Yeah, I buy that, and so it's sort of
Hmm.
sure it's and yeah, there are sort of sprinkled in fully CGI cutscenes throughout some of the other endings, and I definitely think that was a time constraint. I never thought it was because of the fully animated cutscene. That's suspicious now that you think about it, but I thought it's just because it's their perfect ending, right? Where Vanny's apparently still out there, still all messed up. Vanessa's all messed up with Vanny, presuming that they're the same person. We see Burn Trap, what the hell is it? Burn Trap get
Yeah.
taken away, but we don't see him destroyed, right?
why would
of
he?
course.
He always comes back.
So you, right. So you have sort of this sort of perfect out where it's like, oh, it was satisfying. We stuck it to Afton, and if they want, they can make that Afton's demise
Yeah.
for real and go with Vanny. But if they don't, they can bring him back in some capacity. Now, on the
Yeah.
other side, you could still do that. With the Princess Quest ending, Vanny is free, but theoretically the glitch still exists. I don't really buy that because with Vanny's free and then she and Gregory can just like go take care of the glitch at that. Like that would be the first thing that they would do, presumably. So just in terms of story continuation, it definitely doesn't feel like the final end. And because it's not the final end, the Afton ending sort of checks off the most boxes for me. Plus, it's like, it feels satisfying. It's like the ending you get when you've defeated the animatronics and you've, done like the core stuff in the game minus maybe a bunch of picking up stuff.
I'll admit, yeah, I think you're right on that. It feels a lot more satisfying in a way, or correct for William to have been quote unquote killed off, maybe not in that ending, and Vanny's still out there, than Vanny being freed but him still chilling in the basement.
Yeah, that's why I think a lot of people were buying into this notion that maybe Patient 46 is some to be announced unknown villain. But MatPat said it himself, where like, okay, that's cool if they're introducing someone new, but it's inherently underwhelming to find out that like, hey, this big final mystery of Security Breach isn't solvable. It's not even a character you've seen yet. I just don't really buy that they would do that.
I mean,
Okay.
like all of Security Breach is kind of unsatisfying.
Not all
Yeah.
of it.
Okay, not all of it,
That's a
but
fair point. My problems with the Afton ending being canon are this is going to be really difficult to explain. I don't think that Afton is dead in that ending.
no, of course not.
And the fact that he isn't dead in that ending would mean that like getting that ending and making that ending canon means nothing happened really in Security Breach. Like in terms of storyline, what happened, that there was just this kid Gregory, he destroyed loads of animatronics and then went down to see Afton and went back up again.
That's a
like,
good point. It's a very
nothing happened. But if the Princess Quest ending is canon, I personally feel like it's kind of at least the beginning of the end of Glitch Trap. and I feel like it is like a huge turning point there with like
Okay.
freeing Vanny/Vanessa, and I feel like that's the end of Vanny.
And she's
But I don't
permanent
know.
good now, basically. Like she
Yeah,
can't cause any more harm
Just
if
from a
Princess Quest
storyline
wins.
standpoint, I do see your points, but I feel like if I feel like more happened in Princess Quest than Afton
That's
ending.
fair.
Oh, I
That's
agree,
fair.
and it is the 3-star ending. But what's the precedent? Because if someone, I'm sure someone here can
So
remember.
we've for the stars, we've kind of come up with like we think that it's like the amount of people that you save, like in
Oh no, not in terms of how many stars
Oh.
are awarded each ending, but in the previous games that had, in the previous games, sort of, it was always safe to assume that everything that occurred was canon, right? Like even
pretty
past
much.
until custom night, the literal custom night stuff, but like everything up through then
yeah.
is
Yeah.
deemed to be canon.
I think
I think we were told what was canon or not.
Yeah, like I mean,
I
most
think-
games up to like 4 or so, it didn't really matter because everything basically happened. If it wasn't canon, we were told it wasn't. Like some of the Halloween
Oh, it's
characters.
Pizzeria Simulator. That's
But-
the first one that had like serious multiple endings.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Pizzeria Simulator, you can assume only one of those is canon, and then Sister Location, we were told this is a fake ending. Everything
Yeah,
contained in
exactly.
this ending, everything contained in this ending can and does exist, but the events of the ending do not happen.
I
Right,
think the
I remember
FNaF
that,
3
yeah.
bad ending is canon.
Yeah.
That's still a tough one.
I think it's canon, and I think both of them are canon. It's just at different times.
Yeah,
And so
definitely.
this is gets to my problem with FNAF. And FNAF 3, I have a whole issue with the fact that FNAF 3 takes place in the future relative to us, and Fazbear Entertainment is like Dunskies, and then
Yeah.
Help Wanted happens, and like indeterminate time passes, and now they're like bigger
Back
than
in
they ever
business.
were.
Especially after FNAF 6, like not just FNAF 3, but FNAF 6, they were, I guess, somewhat operational, but should have been absolutely done then. And then
Right.
Help Wanted comes around, they're back in business. Full
Right,
swing.
and I can hand wave that away, but it's just it becomes so implausible that it's like, and all this lore, and again, like earlier we mentioned, like the crying child has 3 potential deaths, and if they're Gregory, an infinite amount because you can die a bunch in security breach. But I mean, like that to me is it's a barrier to entry to the games. It's prohibitive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of. It's weird.
just think-
FNAF is
yeah,
weird.
Of course it is,
certainly.
yes.
So,
I think a weird... Oh, you go.
Theft King, quick question. Were you like a FNAF fan back in like the days when FNAF
Oh
1 and 2
yeah,
were
day
coming out?
one.
Yeah,
Straight up
yeah,
day
me
one.
too.
Old.
Me too. So,
I wish.
what do you think? Like, because like a lot of older FNAF fans like don't like the direction this game went in. What's your 2 cents on that?
I mean, personally, of course, I want FNAF Outlast 2 directed by Baddington. You know, duh. Like, that would be sick. I don't know if I could play it. I'm as much as I like scary stuff, I'm a chicken. It's like being a lightweight at a bar. So, like, it's very effective on me. Like, playing, even Help Wanted in VR is like,
Oh, Help
Doing-
Wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, Help Wanted.
I'm
really
very similar.
intense. For
Yeah,
me.
Help Wanted's terrifying.
And so, like, yeah, no, games like Alien Isolation and Outlast 2 scared the crap out of me. Like,
Outlast. Oh god.
Outlast 2 is just a game that just like I kept telling myself like, oh, they're not gonna go there. They're not gonna go there, and they went
Yeah.
there. They just keep
Of
going
course.
there. Every boundary you think that they're not gonna break in a video game, they break. Yeah, that would be super cool, and I guarantee you it would get the Markiplier's playthrough would get crazy views.
Oh,
But I don't think the game would sell very well. I mean, I think the reality is that like a lot of the early FNAF games, like people didn't play them or they played them very briefly. And like a lot of this community was made up of people just sort of kept keeping up with the lore, watching MatPat's videos. You know, there's I think a lot of people who did that, and so they started writing these books. That the first one was a New York Times bestseller, did very well, and I think these books are obviously we know what the demographic is for them, and they see okay, we have this built-in demographic of younger fans, and frankly, I think they're sort of the majority at this point. They're the ones that are proven to be going out there and buying books. They have those numbers. So you can't blame them for targeting the games towards that same demographic that they know likes Five Nights at Freddy's. Whereas targeting the older demographic, you potentially alienate those kids for whom the game might be really interesting and they might love to watch MatPat's theories and love to watch Markiplier play it, but won't play it themselves, or maybe won't even be allowed to play it themselves. So I think it's just sort of the shifting demographics. FNaF fans got older, some got out of the series. The ones that are still in the series are sort of dissatisfied because there's a new generation of fans who want, who they feel the need to include, and it's probably the correct business decision. I mean, Security Breach is certainly the best-selling FNaF game ever, right?
Yeah,
I'd agree.
Yeah. I think we all here can be classified as some of those old fans that are slightly dissatisfied but still here. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm
Hanging on.
I'm actually quite curious as to how younger brand new fans would see the franchise at this point. I don't think I've ever seen that perspective really.
Well,
Right?
I'm sure there's YouTube playthroughs and stuff.
Younger kids generally have a more difficult time. Like movies that we would consider like horror slasher films that we would sort of consider comedy horror as adults, where the killer or the monster is really more like the main character. Those can often really scare kids. Your Elm Streets and your Child's Plays and stuff like that. Movies like that, series like that can really scare kids. And so I think younger gamers and younger viewers and stuff like that, aren't necessarily able to discern like, this is sort
sorry,
of
you can hear my
goofy
dog.
horror. Sorry?
Carry on.
Yeah, sorry.
I think younger viewers have a harder time identifying when this is goofy horror versus like, this is actually like 3 a.m. getting, midnight snack and you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this thing in this, Backrooms video or whatever, or SCP article I read, and now it's freaking me out. I don't think kids can make that distinction. So I think to them, I don't think they would be able to necessarily tell the difference between something like Security Breach and Outlast 2 or Alien Isolation. I mean, obviously some would, but I don't think the distinction is that as substantial for younger viewers and gamers, because
Of course,
they're more easily scared.
Yeah,
I mean, as like 7 years ago, I was scared of Five Nights at Freddy's.
me too.
I'm
still
startled.
terrified
Yeah, no, I mean, it's super creepy. The thought of like, there's that video where they remade FNaF 4 in real life. Have you guys seen that?
I haven't. Oh, that would not. No.
It's
I
amazing.
think I might have.
It's amazing. I'll send it to you guys afterwards, and everyone listening to this should go check it out. But one of the guys who they send, they have him in the bedroom and they have all the mechanics set up. And if you mess up the mechanic, there's, they trigger a jump scare or whatever, and a thing pops out. And it's done pretty well. One of the guys just has a panic attack, like pretty early on.
Oh my
Dude.
god.
And he just he handles it well. Like I've had panic attacks. This guy keeps it together, but like he just sits down. He's like, guys, I cannot do this anymore. You know what I mean? So like, I think
Crazy.
Yeah. It still can be scary, definitely. And if you sort of can put yourself into the situation and sort of empathize with the character in the game, I think it's still effective. And I think Security Breach makes it easier for younger gamers to empathize because the protagonist is this vocal little kid, but it's a little harder for older gamers just because it's so implausible.
So I think one of the oldest like scary memories I had with FNaF was I haven't been with the franchise since the beginning. I might have hopped in around Sister Location or before FNaF 6, but I remember one of the oldest really creepy things was I think someone had to describe to me the bite of 83, and I think knowing that I didn't know anything about FNaF, I probably wasn't thinking it was 8-bit. Like, imagine someone telling you this kid gets his head bitten by a giant Fredbear, not thinking it's an 8-bit minigame.
That's an incredible point.
God.
Do you remember, everyone who's been around from the beginning, and even some of you guys, hopefully all you guys have seen this, shortly after the first came out, somebody it was just like an audio clip, right? And it was just a couple like amateur voice actors, I think, who made this audio clip, like reenacting their interpretation of the bite of 87.
Oh my
Stay away
gosh.
from Foxy, all this stuff, right? and
Yeah.
it got really popular. And it was fan made, it was not official or anything like that, but it got really popular. And I think that comes back to the whole thing that made it so effective in the first place, is that especially my generation who grew up like having been to Chuck E. Cheese and stuff like that, it's the thought, you just imagining like, oh gosh, imagine being in like a dingy old Chuck E. Cheese's at night, but the robots can walk around and they're trying to kill you or something like that. And hearing those audio clips and just hearing the bite of 87, literally it was just a line of dialogue said by Phone Guy, and our imaginations went wild. You know what I mean? And so, and I talked about this in my video about Baddington, where, you know, his sound response check video, the very beginning scene with Chica in the bathroom, literally puts to film something scarier than what I had imagined in my head in those scenarios. And I think that's a little bit trickier in Security Breach, just by virtue of the fact that it's a first-person game. You have all this control. You see the animatronics coming from a mile away. It's a little bit harder to suspend your disbelief, and it's a little bit harder to empathize and really imagine yourself in this situation, because honestly, when I imagine being in the Pizzaplex in real life, it sounds kind of cool. Like, it would be kind of cool and exciting to be there.
Totally.
Whereas being in any of the earlier FNAF locations, no way.
Yeah. Security Breach has really hyped up the cool factor, but it has lost the creepy factor. And there's certainly areas to the Pizzaplex which would be terrifying to be in, but most of the Pizzaplex, it's just an open, well-lit area that you're just going to run around.
It's a weird change to the franchise, I think.
Yeah.
And one that kind of, I guess, needed to be experimented with, but I feel like they could have gone like a lot darker, like physically and metaphorically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a change, and they needed to kind of experiment with that.
What does it say, though, that money talks? What does it say that the game sold so well? I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I should straight up replay it sometime. It's genuinely fun if you kind of get past some of the bugs and stuff. It's a fun game.
I agree. Security Breach is it's probably my favorite FNAF game, because it's fun. It has a couple, like, very few scary moments, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
I guess.
I guess you could say that the fact that it doesn't have too many big scares really hypes up the few that it does. Like, it makes those a lot more tense than they would normally be.
Oh my god, when DJ Music Man came crawling out of that vent or hole or whatever, I was screaming.
You were screaming.
See, I saw that
right in my
hole as
ear.
I was walking up, and I was just like, oh, he's going to come out of there. Like, I don't know.
It
It's
took the
crazy.
scare out of it a bit, I'd say, because we had seen that teaser a while back.
That's true. And I think this comes to another thing, is that Security Breach, if you really think about it, right, it's mainly, I feel like, the next generation of FNAF, as it should be, and it's mainly designed for the younger gamers who are reading the books and stuff like that. But then they threw in a ton of Easter eggs and little references, which don't really have any meaningful impact on the game,
Or at least
and
not yet.
aren't that much of an effort. But the diehard older fans that are still around, it's enough for us to sort of be like, oh my god, look at this, and something like that. Which is why I sometimes say that while the Pizzaplex is cool, it's really a house built of Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, that makes sense.
So, what do you guys think the direction of the FNAF games should go in the future? That was a very badly worded question.
Where's FNAF going? Where should it go, or where is it?
Where should it go, and where is it going?
Let's start with you, Theft.
Should it go?
Where should it go?
I've been talking
mean,
a lot. I mean,
I have a strong opinion on this, but
Oh,
Go for it.
we had the Scott controversy, which we're certainly not going to litigate here, right? But it happened, right? And he, quote unquote, retired.
Yes, and we all know what the word litigate means. I definitely know what that means.
Right. So
What
he
does litigate mean?
he retired, but he still co-authors all the books. He still owns Scott Games. He still publishes. He published Steel Wool. He published Security Breach. He hired Steel Wool, right? We see these changes. We see the change dialogue lines about Gregory cutting his arm versus being injured. And to me, that feels like Scott. that feels like Scott directly intervening. So while I know Scott is not a 3D game developer, he made his games in ClickTeam Fusion. It doesn't make sense for him to be writing code for 3D games. I do still get the sense that Scott is still rather involved with the franchise, and I'm okay with that. I just think it's nebulous, and we need to know, like, is Scott fully on board, or is he done? And I want him to be one or the other for the future of the franchise. Because if he wants to be on board, then great, be fully on board and committed. But if he doesn't, that's awesome too. Name a protege. They can reboot FNaF or do whatever, or keep it going in the same continuity, whatever, and Scott can drive off into the sunset counting his money. Whatever they do, I just want to see one of those two things happen, not this sort of weird middle ground that we're in where Scott's retired, but he's obviously still involved.
Yeah.
I can agree with that completely. What else is there to say on that?
As far as the future direction, that's such a hard question, because on one hand, I want to say, like, yeah, like, I want them to make, Outlast 2 FNaF, right? Of course. But on the other hand, it's like, well, they made Security Breach. It got a good reception. It sold well. It's popular. It made money. Did it sell well in spite of its issues in terms of bugs? Certainly. But did it sell well in spite of it being, a much lighter-hearted game than the previous entries? I don't know. It might have sold well because of that. We're not sure. We've never seen a full sort of big 3D, double A, let's call it, FNaF game that, is really dark. So it's hard to tell, and it's hard to tell how Scott and Steel Wool are going to see the reception of this game, and are they going to, because Scott's super receptive to a fault, honestly. I'm not sure, I'm not sure he should be changing the story ever based on fan reactions. I think that's a really slippery slope that happened during the FNAF 4 Dream Theory nonsense. And so, like, I want Scott to just be all in and, yep, I'm doing my thing and I'm telling the best story that I can tell. And if you don't like it, too bad. Or I want him to sort of be like, yep, I built this franchise. It's bigger than me now. I'm handing it off to these people who are the new heads of FNAF. And I'm sure if Scott trusts them, they'll be great people. So
I think they've made a lot of mistakes in making Security Breach, but they're going to learn from that. It's just whether or not they because, yeah, as you said, it probably sold well because it was kind of such a different game. It was very well lit and
the hype.
And the hype, of course. So I feel like they probably are going to keep going in that direction because it sold well in that aspect.
Yeah.
But I think in the future that they are going to clear up bugs before they publish.
Hopefully.
And they were certainly out of time. We know that the game was delayed,
of course.
Right?
Yes.
So if the game's delayed, then by nature, the publisher and the investors who've put money in expected the game to take X amount of months. Now it's going to take 9 more months, and they have to pay all the salaries and rent and everything for 9 more months. So
it's not
obviously they were rushed.
It's actually not uncommon for game studios, like publishers, to threaten to remove funding if somebody doesn't get a game out by a certain date.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why Grind is out there. And so it sounds to me like, Scott is probably a decent publisher to work for. The question is, at this point, he has this relationship with Steel Wool. That, to me, is the $1 million question. Is like, Scott has this relationship with Steel Wool. They've produced Help Wanted, which did well, but it was a VR game, so expectations are different. But now they've produced Security Breach, which did exceedingly well. So, I'm sure they got all of their bonus incentives and they hit all of their targets and stuff. So if I was Scott, I would stay with Steel Wool and contract them again, because I'm sure it's not a multi-game contract. I'm sure if Scott wanted to, he could go to a different team. That said, it was successful. So I suspect we're with Steel Wool, which I'm okay with because, Ray and the other guy.
They've done very well. Yeah,
they seem like really genuine good guys, and they seem like they really love FNAF and are.
They have a lot of passion. You can see that in their game making.
And so I'm fine with those guys taking over, and I hope that now that they've sort of built the underlying framework to build this type of 3D FNAF game, that all that sort of legwork is done and they have their engine and they have, basic mechanics down, that the next game's development is going to be a lot smoother and they're going to be able to have a lot more features in the game just because they're building on top of a base that presumably they've bug fixed a bunch.
Oh my gosh. I will be right back.
Okay. So underscore, what do you want in the future? Do you want it to keep going down the route it's going, or kind of an Outlast kind of FNAF game series?
I'm gonna be honest. I have very little understanding of what you guys are meaning by Outlast.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sure.
Just
So
kind of-
Outlast 2 is it's a
Pure
first-person horror game.
I'm back.
And
Sorry about that.
No problem. We're explaining how Outlast 2, because some people, especially viewers of this who are younger and just into FNAF, may not be familiar.
Yeah, I don't know much about Outlast. So
Outlast 2 is a first-person game. You view most of the game through a camera, like a camera you're holding up to your eye. So you use night vision in the camera for dark areas. And every single line that you can imagine gets crossed in that game. Like, my jaw was on the floor. Like, it starts off with stuff like, oh, whoa, male nudity in a game. You don't see that very often, right? And then it comes down to just like some of the most disturbing and twisted imagery in a very high fidelity sort of, at the time, photorealistic game. And it's
like when you think of the genre horror, it is like all of it intertwined
Outlast
into
is
one.
straight up just the most horror you can get.
everything, every trigger warning that you can imagine gets triggered from this game, and there were times where I had to just put it down because it got too intense.
So now that you explain Outlast and stuff like that, I definitely agree that. Well, okay, where am I going with this? Security Breach, we all know, was very light and not as scary as it could have been. I would personally actually love to see the next game in the series or the direction take a bit of a darker turn. Like, we had a few dark things here and there, but it was pretty light. Especially if you remember an old Scott quote, he had to do FNAF World because he said there was only so much time you could spend on thinking about child murder.
Mm-hmm.
No, you never heard that quote. He did FNAF World because
He just
that
couldn't take,
that dark load kind of started taking a toll, and I think it's about time we maybe turn back to a bit of darkness that we didn't see much in Security Breach.
I would love that, but I don't know if they can do that.
Do you think
Yeah,
it's
I don't know
possible?
either.
Like, a lot of people like the old days of FNAF are better. Do you think it's possible to ever return to that?
It has to
No.
be. It has to be, because the fans that are reading the books now will grow up. In fact, the fans that are reading those books and are 12 and 13 now, by the time the next game ships, they're going to be 14, 15, 16. I mean, that's a fundamentally different demographic.
And that provides the perfect point to do something darker, because they've grown up since they, played Security Breach as little kids. Now they're ready for something a bit more mature, something darker.
That's sort of the hope. That's the hope. The alternative is that they say, okay, this worked, so let's lean even heavier into this and make it even lighter and more sort of silly. And
That's
go
where
for
I
even
think it's going to go.
broader
Dang,
things,
that's not what I want to happen.
Exactly.
Me neither,
I think
but that's the way that they could see it.
But
I mean,
money
at the
talks.
end of the day, it's a business.
Huh. Money does talk.
And
But-
Security Breach sold really well.
A
But
section
in
in
spite of
Security
its
Breach-
issues.
Yeah.
a
I mean, let's
section in
be real,
Security
like us
Breach-
FNAF fans,
Sorry.
like even us hardcore FNAF fans that want really dark FNAF games, we all still got Security Breach the moment we could. We were all still super hyped
Yeah.
to play it.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
definitely.
Yeah.
And
Will
I mean,
get the
I'll
next
still
one?
follow the series if it does get lighter, but
Yeah.
it would be nice for it to get darker, of course.
But
Um,
I think they need to finish the story and start a new story.
I made a whole video about that. Yeah, Afton sucks.
We
and
aren't
he's
able
supposed
to
go.
move on, and that sucks. The FNAF
And
theories
it's
community,
constraining too.
Yeah,
If they want mass appeal, they need the FNAF concept, I think, is what's so strong, and that's why you can show anybody the beginning of Baddington's sound response check, and they'll be like, that's super creepy, right? Even if they know nothing about FNAF and the series. And so I think that's sort of proof that the concept is still really strong, and that, yeah, FNAF got popular. But, look, I fully believe that initially MatPat and Markiplier made more money from FNAF than Scott did. 100%, I believe that.
Yeah.
And so, I can't help but think that Scott needed to figure out a way to sort of make these games that were you couldn't just watch them. And I think that was the problem with the earlier games, is that playing them is obviously more fun than watching them, but you still get quite a lot out of watching them. You get like most of the experience. And Security Breach is sort of the first game where the player has enough agency that there's a reason to play it yourself.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that that's sort of what drove the success of Security Breach, and that future entries in the series they're going to sort of realize, like, okay, we don't need all these characters. FNAF is big enough on its own anymore. We don't need to lean into the lore and make sure that we give MatPat lots of fodder to promote the game, because I do believe Scott did that.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
The thing is, you can have FNAF have a complex story and be about scary haunted robots. And I think the first couple games did that really well, because it wasn't like super sci-fi yet. I do think that sci-fi kind of like ruined the story. I think it overcomplicated it, and then like I remember like a couple years ago, MatPat made a video how like the story's incomplete, so that we can't move on. And it's right. The story's incomplete, so we always come back to it. We rehash the same theories over and over again, and it's just annoying at this point.
What about the fact
every
that there's
game
too much story?
Answers one question and asks 3 more.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like you're kind of getting there with, like, I think Sister Location was like the beginning of that whole shabuckle. I don't know what word to say there.
No,
Debacle.
Shabuckle works.
Debacle. Yeah. Where like it's getting more sci-fi really clearly, and although Sister Location was like really scary, yes, still. That was kind of like a big turning point in the series. And even with like things with like the books were introduced, so we got character names, like that was where we got William Afton from and Michael Afton. It's like all of that, it kind of changed the series forever. And
I would
don't know
agree,
if it was for the better.
because like like back then I was like, oh, purple guy, like we still call him Purple Guy, but he's more now well known as William Afton, not just like this mysterious purple guy. I feel like I don't know. Like, yeah,
I think it was by necessity.
Theft King said it best. Answers 1 question, ask 3 more. FNAF 6 was supposed to be the. I'm sorry, you can go. I didn't mean to.
No. I was just gonna say, I think it was I think it was a necessity that the game became more science fiction, because they chose to answer these questions, right? Mm-hmm. MatPat asks all these questions about, like, okay, what's going on, which are totally valid questions. I was super stoked about those videos when they came out, and I still think they're great videos. And we had like, okay, spooky robots. Oh, a spooky thing happened. Why are these spooky robots trying to get at us? Okay, we survived the nights. And if you're really, really clever, you got to remember, most people who played FNAF 1, they didn't notice the newspaper clippings on the walls and the cameras. Nobody saw that. Like, very few people noticed that stuff and read them, right? People liked the game just because it was spooky robots in a spooky place. Mm-hmm. Then MatPat made his video, people on Reddit found those newspaper postings, and it was like, oh, cool. So they're not just malfunctioning, which was plausible at the time that they were just broken robots. They're not just malfunctioning, they really are haunted, and this is why, right? And I think Scott sort of said, oh, my game is getting traction based off this theory stuff, so let me go all in on this lore and on these mysteries. But I think the way to do that was to tell new stories each time that sort of had similar reveals to the FNAF 1 story. If by expanding on the FNAF 1 story and just sort of trying to build this epic saga, it necessarily has to become a science fiction story, because you have to get into the whole, how does he build the robots, and how does he get the souls in there, and how does that all work? I don't really care about those questions. I don't think those were important to FNAF 1. I don't think they made FNAF 1 scary. But I think Scott leaned into them because he saw that, my game is popular because people like to theorize about it. But they still could have done that even if they had, done sort of more looser tied together continuities and separate incidents each game, because, that way we could just have to solve the mystery of the current game or the current location, which honestly, I think Sister Location introduced a lot of great ideas that FNAF 6 perfected, like the different gameplay phases and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think it came really close to sort of being like, okay, here's this new continuity and sort of I don't want to say new characters, but a new side to the family, literally the Sister Location. And so I saw it as a way to like, okay, now they can tell a fresh new story like FNAF 1 where we don't know anything and we need to learn it as we go, and hopefully by finishing the game we'll discover some nice self-contained story that satisfies it, that's satisfying like FNAF 1.
Yeah.
So
Well
you talked about MatPat's theories, and I actually went back to like look at the first one he ever did, which was actually one
The
of
McDonald's murders.
Yes, that one.
Did you just say McDonald's?
Yeah, did
Yes.
you not know that? The first MatPat theory was...
So MatPat's first theory was based on this. He and look, it was the beginning, but he found like some news article about murders that happened at like a McDonald's.
A Chuck E.
Like
Cheese.
that.
It was a Chuck E. Cheese.
That's
Oh,
what I was
Chuck E.
It makes
Cheese.
more sense for a Chuck E.
It
Cheese.
was literally
Yeah.
a Chuck E. Cheese. Okay, yeah. It was a murder at a literal Chuck E. Cheese, and like he was like, yeah, I think this was the inspiration. I think we all know that that's not the case, that Scott made Chipper and Sons Lumber, and reviewers said, your pre-rendered CGI sprites look like creepy Chuck E. Cheese animatronics. And then Scott was like, okay, I'll do that then. Everyone knows that that's sort of the story.
Yeah.
I think it was just a way for
know.
MatPat to sort of tell a ghost story at the time.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I liked where MatPat went with that.
Yeah, I liked it too. And
It
I
could've been.
remember that theory, and then I was scrolling through his playlist, like, oh, I remember the FNAF 2 and FNAF 3 theories, and then like the FNAF 4 stuff, that was cool. And then like you get to FNAF 5 and like afterwards, and it really starts to feel really oversaturated. And then it's like, oh, I don't remember.
Convoluted.
Yeah, it gets more convoluted, and then it's like, wait, I don't remember this theory. Like the early ones, they felt special, and now the FNAF theories don't. And I don't know why. It's
Maybe because of the FNAF books kind of ruined it, and again with like the whole character names and stuff, it just kind of became convoluted at that point.
yeah.
I think Scott focused too much on creating a game that was a puzzle to be solved, and I don't think that's what he was thinking about when he made FNAF 1. It was his last ditch effort. He was working at Dollar Tree or something like that, or Dollar General.
Yeah.
And so now I think he's thinking about, okay, I know, my games were successful in the past because they got all of this earned media through, channels like MatPat theorizing and Markiplier playing them and stuff. So each new game needs to be sort of a puzzle that needs to be solved. And I think that trend, we suffer from that trend, and Security Breach is still sort of suffering from it in the sense that, like, if you don't dive into all the lore and you just play through the game, even if you get every ending, if you don't like dive deep into the lore, you're not going to have any clue what happened, and the game just doesn't feel like it was significant. None of the endings feel significant unless you know a ton of extra lore.
kind of, but
Yeah.
I kind of disagree about like the other, like the first part that you said, because
The puzzle to solve.
because like I felt like 1, 2, and 3 as a singular was solvable. Like there weren't really any questions in the first 3 games that weren't solvable.
Oh, I agree. I'm
then-
not saying that it's an unsolvable puzzle. I'm just saying that I think rather than saying, how do I make the best game I can possibly make, which I'm sure Scott was trying to do, I think the games might have suffered a bit and could have been better if Scott had just sort of wasn't constricted by feeling the need to sort of not only build this whole new satisfying puzzle that's well hidden that people can discover, but also tie it back to everything that came before it, which unto themselves were complex, well hidden puzzles that were hard to figure out.
Yeah.
But also constricting himself with things like FNAF 4, which I believe his intention for that game was to kind of present the whole dream sequence, and like here's the 4 games, it's all a dream, whatever.
I
And
agree.
then
And then it was
when
reboot
Sister
time.
Location came out, yeah, he had to reboot that and
Mhm.
explain FNAF 4 while also creating new lore and making sure everything before wasn't a dream again.
The way I see it is like FNAF 1 through 3 had its own story. FNAF 4 like fit into that story while telling its own story, but then FNAF 4 had to be like, instead of like FNAF 4 explaining the three stories, it had to be a part of the first three stories, and Sister Location trying to explain that, and then FNAF 6 trying to explain that, and FNAF 6, it could have been the end. The only big thing from FNAF 6 that was a mystery was the freaking Midnight Motorist, that I still don't get what it is, because no one can come to a satisfying conclusion on what it actually is. And okay, there's 6 stories, but now there's Ultimate Custom Night, now there's Help 1, and now there's this and this and this, and it's just, at this point, it's like, there's so much stuff that we aren't able to solve the games, I feel like. Because like, there's so many different interpretations on what things mean that you can say this is the truth. And people will be like, no, I disagree because I think this means this instead of this. And it's just like, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the dream theory thing and Scott changing it is really interesting. I don't know if any of you guys have watched Game of Thrones or read A Song of Ice and Fire, but in that book series, there's a scene in the first book that is very mysterious and foreshadowing something, right?
Okay.
And it's foreshadowing a reveal that literally has not happened yet. I mean, book 6 still isn't out, and it's supposed to be maybe, hopefully, 7 books, right? And we're talking a secret that's supposed to be revealed like at the very end or very late into the series. And he put it in book 1. And what happened was a huge fandom developed, like with FNAF, and people figured it out. Just 100% figured out this thing that should have been a really sort of obscure secret, and clever people figured it out. And so
That is so cool.
the author said, I'm in a weird spot, right? I know that people have this. He's not going to confirm or deny it, of course, but it's definitely correct. He says, I'm in a weird spot, and this is why I don't read fan fiction, and this is why authors shouldn't read fan fiction and shouldn't really get into fan theories, because what happens when someone does get it right? And what happens when everyone else, they post it on social media and everyone sees it and the general consensus is like, oh yeah, that's the thing. Do you then change it so that it's still a surprise? But then all the foreshadowing and all the groundwork you laid ahead of time is for nothing because you've changed it in response to your viewers. So, or readers in this case. So George R.R. Martin specifically says, yeah, that's why I don't think a writer or creator should read fan fiction or read fan theories, because it can mess up, it can influence you and make you make decisions. And
That's
I think
a very good point.
Scott, seeing the sort of fans' reaction to dream theory, and then sort of doubling back on it, yeah, it was a mistake, and it caused a lot of problems that we're still experiencing today. And what's funny is that in hindsight, if they'd gone with Dream Theory and opened the box and it was Dream Theory, right? That would have totally solved a lot of the complaints and gripes that we have with FNAF series right now, you know?
Yeah.
They would have been able to just say, oh, all of that was a dream. Now we can do something new.
Yeah, they could. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry about my dog.
So yeah, I think it's ironic because in hindsight, yeah, if Dream Theory is correct, then they could have, started doing new, more interesting things sooner. And again, it's easy to say this in hindsight. As the games were coming out, I was really stoked. I thought like, yeah, this is great, this is cool. Only now that all the games are out and we can look back at them in their totality, is it really obvious that, oh, you know what? Yeah, maybe Dream Theory would have been okay. Because believe me, at the time I was not into Dream Theory. Believe me.
I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was. They could have told the story and moved on to Sister Location and had it be fine.
Yeah,
exactly.
I typed that in chat.
Done a lot more cool stuff with Sister Location.
I feel like it could have. I feel like, I don't know, because I think that they should do something like what FNAF 4 was trying to do, where they have a thing and it explains the past and leaves, because like if FNAF 1 through 3 was a dream, okay, obviously it's not anymore, but it once was. Obviously, I think it's pretty clear that it once was.
Yeah, I buy that. Yeah.
They could have like done that. They could have had those, and then with that all wrapped up, they can tell a brand new story without having to like, oh, does this match with this thing? And that would have been a good story.
Here is what is happening with Security Breach again. I feel like I feel like they could have told a brand new story, but instead, it's kind of, again, answering one question and asking another three.
That's the good thing, though. I think is that if they're listening,
That
and
it's
I
never
do
gonna be
believe that
solved.
Steel Wool are community minded. If they're listening to the community, I think that the younger side of the community really liked Security Breach, which is awesome. I'm glad that they really
Yes.
liked it.
Yeah.
And I think they see that sort of the older, more of longtime fans. I think a lot of us are echoing that sentiment that like, yeah, we're ready for something new. And I think in a weird way, they might be saying like, oh, we wanted to do something new because we know that the younger fans won't really care. They read the books that aren't really tied super strongly to the games. But we felt like we had to tie it back to the old games or else we would annoy and alienate the older, the longtime fans.
Yeah.
And I think the reception, I hope that they see that the reception is really the opposite, that the longtime fans are like, no, it's cool. Like let's let Afton finally not come back this time. Let's and look, Security Breach is out. It is what it is. It could serve as a really nice bookend on the story. They could do the DLC to tie up all the loose ends in it. And then, hopefully in the next game, they recognize that, yeah, okay, our younger gamers are like totally on board with the books and we can do new stuff for them. And the older gamers, we don't need to constantly tie everything back and make them nostalgic about the old games. They want something new too. So I hope
It's
they
getting the right
recognize
balance.
that.
It's getting the right balance. And that's a very good way to put it.
When you guys talk about like doing something new, do you mean like we'd see almost a completely new story, or do you think it would be like loosely tied back? Like this new chapter could be still featuring Gregory in some way or someone, or would this be straight up brand new everything?
I think at this point, because especially in light of MatPat's theories and what we're seeing, because it's pretty obvious how integral the whole Afton storyline's connection is to Security Breach. I mean, I do buy into the idea that Gregory is the crying child and Michael is Freddy, Glamrock Freddy, and that Vanessa or Vanny somehow Elizabeth. I do buy into that whole thing. So I think they're a little still too intertwined at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
It's possible. You could do something where it's like, okay, Gregory and Vanessa are free of, and Glamrock Freddy maybe are free of all the issues now, but now there's a new thing that's come up and it's the same characters and they still have their backstories and you maintain the old canon, but it's some new thing. But that's just so implausible that the same thing would happen to these same people in a different scenario. So I kind of when I say do something new, I personally would like it if they just did a full reboot and said like, okay, that story's done. We're telling a new story with the same sort of themes and ideas, but brand new canon. But if they did go with we're sunsetting the Afton storyline, it still happened, and the new games are still going to take place in that same universe, but they're not going to really be directly related, and you'll just maybe see one or two throwbacks here and there in the games. I'll take that too. I think that's more concerning because you still have all the baggage and you have to worry about consistency with the old lore and plot holes and stuff like that. But I will take it if it's something new, but I would prefer like a full-on brand new reboot, totally JoJo Part 7 style reboot.
I think that MatPat said it best in his FNaF 6 theory. What they should do is they should reboot it, go back to like the 80s or whatever, like the actual 80s, and tell a brand new story that's disconnected from the Afton storyline.
I would like that.
I think that'd be like a good way to bring back like the old fans that want like the older style of gameplay, while also not isolating new fans, and just in like telling a new story. But to do that, to make that work, you have to finish the first story. I think I stand by that. I think that Scott should reveal the story if there even is one at this point. Or I feel like he should say something that's like there is a story, and this is it, or there isn't a story, and I've just been doing whatever the heck I've been doing this past couple years.
But I think he's going to give some bullshit. I'm sorry. He's going to give some nonsense answer.
Yeah.
Like remember when people asked if the books were canon, and he gave
I
that
was
like
just about to say
super
that, yeah.
bizarre nebulous answer on his Steam page. Like,
Yeah.
They're
the
in a
books
different
are
timeline.
canon and the games are canon and they're not canon and it's all canon and it's what
It would be better for all of us if he was more clear about that sort of stuff. Maybe not tell the entire story, but kind of clear up if
Yeah.
what things are canon, what things aren't. You know,
He's done
it
that kind of
would help
stuff
out a lot.
before. Wasn't it Dako who was streaming and during Dako's stream he like was updating Scott games in real time, or maybe that was one of Matt's.
There
That-
were
that-
that was
that-
MatPat's stream,
MatPat,
and
yeah.
there was the 3 Dream Theory related clues.
See,
Right.
Yeah,
And I guess
Well,
I bet
things like
that's
that
why he
would be
doesn't do
cooler.
it, because it was for Dream Theory and that had such a bad reception, and so now he's like, oh, I can't be dropping direct hints because, you know, we probably wouldn't have figured out Dream Theory on our own, and I think the reason is because people didn't want to figure out Dream Theory. So
I think that Scott holds the story in like this like golden cage. Like this is like the biggest secret. I will never reveal it. This is like what makes FNaF. But at this point, I feel like the story is like restricting the games and making the new story worse. It's like become a detriment, and I feel like you have to clear up 100%, give us full facts. First, what, 7 games, including Ultimate Custom Night. Finish that story. Then we can move on to, you know, these last 3 games, Help Wanted, Security Breach, Special Delivery. We can solve these ones. And then I don't know, maybe like FNaF 10, the final one for this final storyline, if Athens alive, Athens dead, whatever. Then finally reboot the series to the 80s, and that's what, yeah, that's what I think they
I agree.
should do.
but can you really, what do you mean when you say finish the story, reveal everything, right? Like, because I think that is sort of the issue that we're in, is that just trying to wrap up this story would take a monumental game that's completely schizophrenic, or would take multiple games, and like I don't really want to wait.
I think we're too far deep at this point.
Yeah.
It would be a monumental task. to
Like
even
I mean,
try.
like okay. So I think they should wrap up the first era of FNaF story. They should like
No,
tell.
I'm just saying, like, do you
and then-
want every single question to get answered? Because I don't think that's realistic.
I feel like the big ones should be answered, like the ones that theory.
Well, that's a great segue. What do you think are some of the big unanswered questions in the FNAF series that you'd like a confirmed, definite answer from Scott on, if you could?
Midnight Motorist for one, Golden Freddy.
Well, no, be more specific for people who might not know FNAF as well.
All right. I think someone else go.
I can list them if you want.
Yeah, anybody.
True identity of Golden Freddy, maybe some certain dates. What's up with the Crying Child, Michael Afton, certain characters. You know, who are the the
Just
Afton
hang on.
kids.
True identity of Golden Freddy. So you mean,
There-
as far as I understand, the common theory is that there were 2 souls in there, Cassidy and Crying Child.
Yeah, basically, that's the current
And so
running one.
you would like, you would like him to come out and say, like, yes, both of them were in there, but then this happened and Crying Child left, but Cassidy was still there.
I think instead of him telling us the entire story, I think we need just clarification on what's right and what's wrong, because it's really difficult when we don't know what's confirmed and we don't know what is. Wait, never mind. But yeah, I just feel like we need clarification from
It
Scott.
makes me think, like, yeah, we need like the Encyclopedia of FNAF, but they made that. Now that I think about it, they basically made that, and
Wait, I totally forgot.
all the answers were hidden in more secrets, and I feel like they sort of need something that's a little bit more like, okay,
Indeed, yeah.
the final, here's the final one. We're revealing everything in this one. No new mysteries, just solution. You know, maybe mini short-term mysteries that are created and solved within the span of the game. That's fine. But like, okay, something that just solves everything. I don't think one game could do that necessarily, but like, you know, if they could hit the major points and sort of create sort of like, okay, we can't tell everything, but here's what we can say is definitive and canon. But even then, that'll be hard because imagine trying to write that list. You have to go through all the books, all the games, all the emails, and making sure that you're not contradicting anything. It's really impossible without them basically having to retcon certain things. And I'm okay with that. If that's what it takes, they have to say, you know what, guys, this actually happened a little differently because that's how it has to be for us to wrap this all up, fine.
Hey, I think we all totally forgot, but you realize the character encyclopedia is still coming, right?
Yeah, that's not going to do
know
anything.
it was coming.
I totally forgot that was coming, and I think that could be. I know I put a lot of
Let me
faith in
Google
the.
this.
I put a lot of faith into the Ultimate Guide, which didn't pay out that much. I don't want to talk about it,
Here we
but
go again.
maybe the in-character encyclopedia. Maybe he's ready to just straight up say Golden Freddy, like a page about Golden Freddy, is made
I'm
up
sorry,
of
underscore, but you're wrong.
Bruh.
You know what?
Maybe. I don't know.
I'm gonna
actually,
be an
maybe.
enabler. You are completely right. I believe you, underscore.
Oh, don't enable
It's
me.
200 pages long. I mean,
200?
yeah.
Jeez.
There's so many characters.
Ages 12 and up, grade level 7 to 9.
Wait, do we know when it's dropping, by the way?
November 1st.
Oh, that's so far away.
Yeah. It's gonna be like Glamrock Freddy, aka Susie, aka Purple Guy.
I'm very curious what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I hope that it doesn't beat around the bush. It on every page it says what is up with the character. Because
From
how are you going to
games
have a
to
golden?
novels and short stories, all characters are here and laid out in awesome detail that will deepen the knowledge of even the most enthusiastic FNAF players.
Guys,
Over-
grade level 7 through 9.
With,
There's
like-
no way this can provide the level of granularity and detail into
yeah.
the stuff you're
Well, I
talking
was
about.
I
thinking-
wouldn't get your expectations high.
How
Yeah.
are you going to make a page about, let's say, Golden Freddy, for example, when 90% of the information about Golden Freddy is based in theory? That page
Okay,
should be
but-
pretty empty
okay,
or
but-
beating around the bush quite a lot.
You know how they did it in the guides though?
the
They were
Ultimate
like
Guide
Golden
would be.
Freddy. Oh, he exists in FNAF 1. Oh, he also exists in FNAF 2.
Character
Oh, he's
better.
also
theory.
Semi in FNAF 3.
I want a
or
lore.
whatever.
A mysterious apparition that appears from time to time.
That's so.
I'll
Yeah.
say something like that.
He's connected to
bad.
1987 in FNAF 1, you know?
And
It's like-
you know what? I think we just identified another problem. Just like looking like, yeah, I'm reading like here, Scholastic, age range 12 and up, grade level 7 to 9. I think this is another really interesting thing. I think as long as they're targeting the current demographics and sticking to that sort of teen rating, I don't think they can explain everything. I don't even think like what you can't tell an 8-year-old about a 7th grader necessarily about like the details of a spring lock failure.
I don't know. I mean, it's been done in Fazbear Frights, really. So.
Yeah,
that's true. I guess I don't. I'm
pretty
not as
basic.
familiar with how far they go with.
Yeah,
Fazbear
I mean,
Frights.
I think they can go like so much darker if they wanted to, but of course it would go up in age rating.
Some parts of Fazbear Frights were actually quite like real creepy, real
True.
gruesome.
They could have gone
certainly.
way
I'm
worse.
not a
So-
snob. Horror does not need to be explicit to be
Perhaps
scary.
this book will be able to go into some of that detail, but no way of knowing.
But it's like you don't have to be like super gory to be horror. Like I remember when we told underscore the plot of Final Player 2, he was like actually upset about it. Where the
Oh
girl-
yeah, no,
where the
horror
girl-
does not need to be explicit to be scary. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes,
psychological
yeah.
horror is what's popular these
Oh,
days.
That
psychological
sorry.
one
horror is
creeped me the
great.
frick out, dude.
Mhm.
I have one more question, which is kind of relevant to security breach. What do you guys think about like classic FNAF 1 indie versus like open world free roam security breach? Like in the future, would you want more indie or free roam?
I think that
Free roam. I mean, look, I want the games to be. Look, I want Scott to succeed. I want the games to succeed. I want them to get a bigger audience. And I think, fortunately, we don't actually have to choose. And one of the coolest things Scott ever did was start the Fazbear Fanverse. So
Yeah.
I think Scott's vision, this is my theory, a game theory. I think Scott's vision at this point is sort of recognizing like, okay, FNAF is popular with, fans like around his children's age. And the people 8 years ago, who were in their like early 20s 8 years ago, like I was, are getting older. And so the main series games I expect will continue to be big, 3D, double A, bigger budget productions with a big team. I think Scott will make little indie RPGs for fun when he's not lounging by the pool sipping martinis or whatever he does. But he's also got the Fazbear Fanverse, so that when fans want to create their own take on FNAF that's potentially darker, he can help them get it licensed with the official FNAF name, make it an official FNAF Fanverse product. Give them monetary support so that the developer can work on it full time and not have to work a day job. FNAF Plus is an awkward example of this because it's exactly what I describe. It's the darker take on FNAF funded by Scott, but Phil has made comments. Look, we all have our opinions on Security Breach, but it's not our favorite FNAF game. It wasn't Phil's, the developer of FNAF Plus.
He hated it. He was furious.
There's the funniest clip where he opens the cameras and his computer just kills itself.
Right, and so...
Oh yeah, didn't he blue screen or something?
Right, and so, I understand I think his feelings are perfectly valid, and he has every right to say them, but when you're developing a Fazbear Fanverse product and Scott has given you money, I get you don't want to compromise your morals, but maybe don't burn that bridge necessarily, because even though he's dissatisfied with FNAF, Scott has empowered him to make a cooler FNAF that he is into, right? So I'm averse to burning that bridge. It's also why I don't think we'll ever necessarily see, say, MatPat, ever really trash FNAF. I mean, the reality is, and I don't blame him for this, do your thing, make your money. But, he's got a partnership with Scott. He sells official FNAF merchandise on the Theorist store. And, of course, if MatPat hated Security Breach, and I don't think he did, but if he hated it, he wouldn't come out and say it, because that's unproductive. He has, to his partnership. It goes to a big YouTuber like Dawko too. You look at somebody like Dawko and it's like, he got this amazing Steel Wool interview that's awesome that we all get to watch. And if he were to come out and if they released a FNAF game that he didn't like and he were to come out and be really critical of it, that could potentially jeopardize his ability to get awesome opportunities to make cool videos for us in the future. So that's sort of a tricky thing. So I would say if you're a developer and you're interested in making a dark FNAF game, go for it. And if Scott gives you money to do it and you're part of the fanverse, go for it. And, no one will blame you for not being vocally critical of FNAF, because, everyone understands that's the way business works. And in exchange, we get a Scott-funded cool, darker FNAF game. So,
yeah, I would agree with that.
I almost forgot about FNAF Plus, but yeah, we throughout this whole thing we've been talking about how we'd love to see FNAF take a darker turn. Well, it doesn't even have to be the main series. If we just go over to FNAF Plus, it's going to be that dark thing that's going to fulfill that interest that we've been missing or missed out on in Security Breach.
Right. We haven't seen gameplay, so if I haven't seen gameplay of a game, then I for now I don't really think of FNAF Plus as a game. I think of it as sort of like a series of videos of spooky found footage analog horror series, and it's a great analog horror series just unto itself.
It is.
If the game played, and I think the game's going to do a lot more, but if the game played exactly like FNAF 1, but just looked like that and had those aesthetics, I'd be stoked. I think it's going to have more. We don't know, but I think projects like that are really cool. And while Phil probably isn't going to develop the next one after FNAF Plus, just because he's probably not interested in it. Someone else will.
There's no plans to do it.
Yeah, and someone else will, and someone else who likes FNAF, maybe it may be one of the younger fans now who right now is reading the books and really into Security Breach, and in a couple years, their interests change, and they want a darker FNAF, and they learn to develop games and make the art and stuff, and next thing you know, you could be making the next Fazbear Fanverse dark FNAF side project. So I think that's sort of the best we're gonna get. And I think that's totally awesome. I think that's good enough. We'll get that dark indie sort of, classic FNaF feeling from those games, and we'll get this sort of new, groundbreaking, evolution of the series from the main Steel Wool games.
All right. I think it's about time that we start wrapping everything up. So, any final thoughts that we want to get out there?
Not really.
No.
Yeah, there was one thing I wanted your guys' opinions on.
All right,
okay.
Hit us.
Patient 46, MatPat's theory ends today with this like big thing where he talks about Patient 46 and how
I was hoping this wouldn't be brought up.
he goes on the great. No, we got to talk about it. This is what people want to hear.
Yeah.
He goes
Yeah,
on
okay.
the whole journey of which it's funny because I went on the same journey like a week or so ago with a video where I was like, wait, let's just pretend that Gregory's Patient 46 and try to make that work. And it was very amusing to watch MatPat sort of go through the same process that I did, that like, yeah, at the start, it sort of lines up and it makes sense. And oh yeah, they're certainly talking to a child and all this stuff. And MatPat even uses one of his Gregory, I don't want to, not clip art, but one of his little Gregory puppets while describing Patient 46 long before he even suggests it's Gregory. So we know he's going there. But then at the end, he's like, but then we find all this weird stuff at the end that sort of contradicts it. So I like to think that Patient 46 is Gregory. I personally think that he was under the glitch's control or under, some nefarious control at one point, and then broke free of it, but was acting as a double agent or something, and hadn't revealed that he had actually, he now had free will and had woken up the same way that Freddy has.
Interesting. I do like that thought. Again, we just are going to get a 100% confirmation or like.
No, I don't think we
100%
don't have
theory.
confirmation now. I'm just curious, do you guys think it's probably Gregory, or do you guys think it's a new character or Van?
I don't know. Honestly, I felt really unsatisfied after watching that MatPat theory because like the first part was good, but then like when he got to the 46 part, it was like this is my final FNaF theory, but he didn't answer. Like he didn't give like his.
He clickbaited.
He didn't clickbait.
He didn't clickbait.
It was not clickbait.
But it's kind of like
I would know.
I was kind of like like it's not like even if it's like a very outlandish claim, I wish he was like even if it was just like Gregory is definitely Patient 46. I wish he would have said that just so, like we had like a definitive answer on what MatPat thinks. I guess.
Well,
not saying,
it's interesting you say that because on one of on my video where I did the same thing where I played devil's advocate for my own theory and built this whole theory over the first 7 minutes and then destroyed my own theory. I think that I don't know if MatPat has. I doubt MatPat has. I think he thinks it's Gregory, certainly, but I think he thinks like, yeah, I think it's Gregory. All the evidence, most of the evidence we have points towards Gregory, so that's our best guess now. But yeah, it's not conclusive, and I think he's banking on DLC sort of revealing more of that. I think the only alternative is that it's Vanny, and thus Vanny isn't Vanessa, which I don't buy. I think they're the same person. Or it's some new unseen character, or not new, but some unseen character who isn't in Security Breach, which, like MatPat said, could be cool because we want new characters, a new story. But on the other hand, it's underwhelming for the last mystery to be unsolvable, and it's someone you've never seen before.
I feel like that's just a repeat of Midnight Motorist, a mystery that no one can solve with new characters that maybe maybe not seen before.
Yeah, I think it's good that MatPat presented a few different thoughts there, rather than just saying, "Oh, it's probably Gregory. I believe Gregory." I think we've talked about this in the past.
And he was able to double down on the robot, and I've agreed with him for a while. He believes that Gregory is a robot, and I'm 100% on board.
I'm glad he's convinced more people now.
Yeah,
I'd say I loved a lot of today's video, like mostly the first half, and I loved the evidence that 46 was at least a child in some way.
Yeah,
but I couldn't convince myself that it was Gregory specifically. I had been thinking it was Vanny, but the child thing goes out the window if Vanny and Vanessa are the same person, at least.
Yeah,
so
his best point was the voice. That's because I noticed the child thing immediately, but explaining the words and the way she gets up and sits next to him and taps the picture and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I thought I thought MatPat's sort of his biggest reveal, the most interesting thing that he found from the FNaF theory from the tapes were when, oh my god, I completely lost my train of thought. He made a really compelling point about
What?
He made I forget what it was, but it was something I hadn't considered before about the tapes, and it was you know what, I have to find it. Give me 10.
Is it that 46 was killing the therapists?
No, I think it was obvious that 46 was killing the therapists. Hang on, I'll find it.
I just while you're finding that, I think it's really far fetched that not even that Gregory would be, you know, we go from one, he's this robot learning in this cavern covered in sticky notes, to he's going to the same therapy sessions as Vanessa, to he's directly killing the therapists. I think that's a big leap and bound from where the video started and where it ended.
Oh, I remember now. Now. MatPat points out that we don't hear patient 46's voice.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. If it was a new character, there wouldn't really be any reason to mask the voice, right? You could potentially argue that, like, oh, we masked the voice because it's not a new character, but it's not Gregory, but it's also someone who you'll immediately recognize. But nobody in the game really fits that category. There is nobody that fits that, right? The only person in the game whose voice would give them away, the only character, is Gregory. That's, I think, a huge smoking gun that I had never considered that MatPat dropped today. That, like, yeah, if it was a new character and we've never heard their voice before, they could just have the voice in there, right? And if they had to hide it because it wasn't Gregory, well, then who is it? Can't be Vanessa, because then the other sessions don't make any sense and it's inconsistent.
I'm gonna have to think about this a lot more.
if they had added a voice for those tapes, like, take the current game and imagine that there was a voice, but we didn't know who this was. It would be a voice with no name but 46 if it wasn't Gregory.
I know that, but if it was a child's voice, we'd either immediately recognize it as Gregory, or we'd immediately recognize it as not recognizing it, right?
Yeah, someone unrecognizable at the current state of how the game goes.
Right, and so if they would be unrecognizable anyway, why even hide the voice? Why even obscure it if it wasn't going to make it super obvious, as MatPat points out?
I think know.
That's a really compelling clue that
it's
I didn't even think
Gregory.
of. That sort of makes it obvious. Like, yeah, it's got to be. I mean, I guess you could say Glamrock Freddy, and I postulated that idea in my video that maybe Glamrock Freddy, they somehow, Fazbear Entertainment sent this animatronic to therapy, but that's really implausible. With Gregory being a robot that can pass as a human, it makes sense that he could be in therapy, you know? So
I don't know if this is really important, but keep in mind that the Vanessa's therapy sessions are going on while she's still working at Fazbear Entertainment in an
Help
online for Help Wanted,
FNaF
and
AR.
I suppose a bit of help, or FNaF AR, but
The emails
because
at
one of her
the same
final
time.
ones,
Lewis,
says
yeah.
she's moving to Security Breach, so she isn't even working at the mall yet when the therapy sessions are happening. Yet
Right.
someone is still interfering.
she's been
with her,
there,
with
right?
what's going on.
We know that she's. Oh no, we don't know that she's been there. We know that
We know the
46 has been
Petaplex
there.
exists.
Yes, even if she wasn't working there yet.
Interesting.
This is
Yeah.
all very convoluted.
Yeah, you know, I think the tapes basically tell us that Vanessa is Vanny. She made the suit. I mean,
Definitely.
like they were talking about in the live stream today. If that's a misdirect, it's one of the craziest misdirects we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That would be like the meanest misdirect ever. Like,
Biggest troll.
I almost started to think that it was a misdirect just because I kept going back to that Vanny. That sounds an awful lot like Vanessa and Bunny. Like, oh my god, maybe it is a misdirect because that's so.
I thought it was too obvious.
It's so blatant.
So dumb. Like, but no, I think Vanny is Vanessa, and
Yeah.
I think
No
that
way
leaves
she's
Patient
not.
46 as having to be Gregory, which I think is cool. Like, I think that's exciting to think that, like,
He's
at one
masterminded
point,
some of what's going on here.
well, I don't believe that Gregory is like some crazy person who's just like, yeah, I'm gonna do all this evil stuff, and it doesn't explain why he kidnaps kids, like MatPat's says, or why he thinks it's funny that the robots are programmed to be creepy, right? I think that Gregory is sort of like I think Gregory was under the influence, the Greg bot really was under the influence of the glitch or Afton at some point during, Help Wanted and AR and when these tapes were made. But I think he woke up at one point.
And that's what's happening in Security Breach. He's woken up by now and is turning it all back around. He's kind of stopping what had happened.
Right. And again, it's when he leaves, if you do before the bad ending, right, when you get to the doors, right, there's been very little talk in game, like openly, about the disappearances that have been going on, right?
Yeah. 9 or so.
Says, "Oh yeah, everyone here is trying to get me," and you can read some lore messages that reveal that some incidents happened and some stuff happened. But then out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Gregory just drops like, "But if I leave, nothing will change. The disappearances will keep happening." And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Where did that come from?
Where did he learn that? Jeez.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the game, that's the thing. If you go through what Gregory went through, like, yeah, there's little clues here and there, like all the clothing pile in Lost and Found, stuff like that.
I didn't even
those are some of the
notice that.
spookiest parts of the game. But yeah, I just, that's how I feel.
Well,
All right.
I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah.
This been pretty good.
Yeah.
This was the blast.
There's a lot of
It's given
stuff
me
to
a
talk
lot
about.
to think about.
Yeah, it's like FNaF games. Answer 1 questions, ask 3 questions.
Yeah.
It's usually a percentage-based thing for me. It's like you look at all the evidence, and then you're like, okay, I'm 80% confident that Gregory is patient 46, but 20% not confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's enough for me to say, yeah, I think Gregory is patient 46. But
I wish more of the FNaF community was like you. That would make things a lot easier.
Oh,
it would make getting YouTube arguments to happen in your comment section much harder, though.
True. Make sure that if you disagree with anything, you argue it
revenue.
profusely down in the comments.
Listen,
Yes.
FNAF fans, if there's one thing that every FNAF fan has, no matter whether they liked Security Breach, didn't like Security Breach, whether they're an old fan, a new fan, whatever, they all have opinions, and they will tell you them.
I thought you were going to say ego.
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm not. I mean...
And they have ego, yeah.
No, 'cause we're FNAF fans. So anything we're saying about them, we're saying about ourselves. So
Hey, I'm an imposter. I'm actually a fan of Doki Doki Literature Club.
Doki Doki's pretty good.
Never played it.
I mean, it's an interesting game. It plays with unique. What happened with the sequel? Is that ever going to come out?
All right, let's end.
Yeah, okay, we're
thank you for joining us on the longest episode of the Dark Rooms podcast to date.
Thank you to
Again,
Theft King.
Yes,
for
thank
coming
you,
on.
Theft
Thanks
King.
so much for listening to me.
Next week we have CG5.
Are we announcing that now?
Is that a secret?
Well, yeah, it's already announced.
Oh yeah, because we did the YouTube things.
Yeah.
Def King, you know what we did yesterday or the day before, right?
Well, he doesn't know CG5, so.
You don't know who CG5 is?
I started making videos a month ago.
Fair point. Fair point.
I'm
Look
just
into
glad that I
CG5.
got
He's
through
great.
this without swearing.
You did not. You swore.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's usually really bad.
All right, that's fine.
But yeah, next week is very exciting, so
Yes.
make sure you tune in for that.
And yeah,
Anyway.
thank you so much for watching
Alright.
this video, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye. Oh wait.
Like, comment, and
it's not
subscribe.
ending. It's not ending because
Don't make him do the thing.
You're
Don't
doing
make
it.
him do the thing.
Theft King has to do the ending speech. He's the guest.
If there's
He has
a
to do the
ritual, then
speech.
I will do the
Ending
ritual.
speech.
Don't
do
make
it.
him do the thing.
Ending speech.
Rituals are important.
Ending speech. Go. Do your ending speech right now.
Well, what should it consist of?
Just do it. Go.
No,
Go.
you just
I
have to.
mic drop. Okay. At the end of my videos, I just say thanks for watching after my last point and mic drop it and fade the music up. Thanks
Fade
for
the
watching.
music.
Mic dropping.
You ever drop the mic? Mic drop? You ever never heard that expression?
Oh no, mic drop's like when you're like, like at the end of 8 Mile when Eminem finishes the awesome rap battle,
Yeah.
he drops the mic on the stage. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a
drop it.
dramatic end to something.
I thought it was a new
It's just
theory
'cause I don't
that-
know how to
that
end
says that
videos,
Mike
so-
dropped
Fair,
the
I
crying
don't
child.
either, really.
I thought
And I
Mike-
guess
do not-
none of us know how to end videos, so I just go, thanks for watching.
And then
Hey, this
they
video
fade
is
the music
ending right now.
I thought Mike drop was a new theory where Mike dropped
No.
the crying child. Fade the
Send
music.
it on the thanks for. Just cut it at the thanks for watching.
No,
Yeah,
fade
yeah.
the music right here.